I'm standing in the bridal suite at the Rosewood estate, staring at a text message that just shattered my entire world. Sorry sis, but Marcus and I fell in love with the venue when we toured it last week. You understand, right? We moved our date up. See you there as a guest. 2 hearts. My hands are trembling so badly I can barely hold my phone. This venue, the one I booked 18 months ago, the one I've been making payments on, the one where I'm supposed to marry Daniel in exactly 3 weeks, has just been stolen by my younger sister Vanessa. And somehow, she's managed to move her wedding to the exact same date as mine. I'm Elena Castellano, 28 years old, and until 5 minutes ago, I thought I understood how the world worked. I thought family meant something. I thought being the responsible older sister who always put everyone else first would eventually count for something. I was wrong. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The Rosewood Estate isn't just any wedding venue. It's a historic mansion in the Berkshires, perched on 40 acres of rolling hills with gardens that look like they've been painted by an impressionist master. Floor-to-ceiling windows in the ballroom catch the sunset in a way that makes everything glow gold. There's a stone chapel on the property that dates back to 1887, with original stained glass windows that cast rainbow light across the aisle. I discovered it 3 years ago while driving through Massachusetts on a work trip, and I knew immediately that this was where I wanted to get married someday. When Daniel proposed to me on a snowy evening in Boston Common, the first thing I did after calling my mother was contact the Rosewood Estate. They had exactly one opening in the next 2 years, a Saturday in late September when the fall foliage would be at its peak. I put down a non-refundable deposit of $5,000 that same night, then set up a payment plan for the remaining balance. The venue cost more than I could comfortably afford on my salary as a middle school art teacher, but I'd been saving for years. This was going to be my one perfect day. Vanessa knew all of this. She was with me when I first showed Daniel photos of the venue. She helped me create mood boards with color schemes that would complement the autumn setting. She even drove up with me twice to meet with the event coordinator, offering opinions on table arrangements and lighting options. At the time, I thought she was being supportive. Now I realize she was gathering intelligence. My sister and I used to be close, or at least I thought we were. Growing up in our family's brownstone in Brooklyn, we shared a bedroom until I left for college. Vanessa is 3 years younger than me, and for most of our childhood, she followed me around like a shadow. I taught her how to braid her hair, helped her with homework, defended her from mean girls in middle school, and covered for her when she snuck out to parties in high school. Our parents, both surgeons who worked brutal hours at Mount Sinai Hospital, were rarely home. I became more than a sister to Vanessa. I was part mother, part protector, part best friend. Or so I believed. The first crack in our relationship appeared 2 years ago when I started dating Daniel. Daniel Montgomery was different from anyone I'd ever been with. He was stable where my previous boyfriends had been chaotic, thoughtful where they'd been careless, genuinely interested in building a future instead of just enjoying the present. He worked as a financial analyst at a prestigious firm in Manhattan, made good money, and had his life together in a way that felt refreshingly adult. He was also kind, funny, and treated me like I mattered. Vanessa didn't like him. She never said it directly, but I could tell from the way she acted whenever he was around. Cool, distant, making little comments that seemed innocent on the surface but carried an edge underneath. Daniel seems very corporate, she'd say with a tight smile. Or, I guess some people are into the whole traditional thing. When I got engaged, her congratulations felt forced, delivered with a hug that lasted half a second too short. I attributed her attitude to general sibling weirdness, maybe even a bit of jealousy that I was settling down first. Vanessa had always been the social one, the party girl who dated frequently but never seriously. I figured she'd come around once she saw how happy Daniel made me. Then, 6 months ago, Vanessa started dating Marcus Chin. She met him at a charity gala where she was working as an event coordinator for a boutique planning company. Marcus was there representing his family's real estate development empire. The Chens were old money, the kind of wealthy that didn't need to prove anything because everyone already knew. Marcus was handsome in a catalog model way, charming in a practiced manner, and completely besotted with Vanessa from their first conversation. Their relationship moved at lightning speed. Within a month, she'd moved into his penthouse apartment in Tribeca. Within 2 months, she was wearing designer clothes and posting photos from exotic weekend getaways. Within 3 months, they were engaged with a ring that probably cost more than my annual salary. I tried to be happy for her. I really did. But something about the whole situation felt off. Vanessa had changed, becoming someone I barely recognized. She talked differently, using business jargon and name-dropping people I'd never heard of. She dressed differently, trading her bohemian style for polished elegance that looked expensive and impersonal. Even her laugh sounded different, more calculated, less genuine. When she told me she was engaged, I hugged her and said all the right things. I asked to see the ring, admired it appropriately, and offered to help with wedding planning. That's when she first brought up the Rosewood estate. "I love that venue you picked," she said casually over brunch at a trendy spot in Soho. "It's so romantic and elegant." "Very you." "Thanks," I replied, pleased that she was finally showing interest in my wedding. "You should definitely consider it for yours. Though they book up pretty far in advance." "Oh, Marcus and I aren't in any rush," she said, sipping her overpriced green juice. "We're thinking maybe next summer, or even the following year. We want to do it right, you know. No point rushing into something as important as a wedding." I agreed, relieved that there wouldn't be any competition or comparison between our events. I was excited to be married first, to have my moment before Vanessa's inevitable extravaganza that would dwarf my modest celebration. 2 weeks ago, Vanessa called me sounding stressed. "Elena, I need your help with something. Marcus's family is being really pushy about the wedding timeline. His grandmother is quite elderly and they want her to be there, but her health is declining. They're suggesting we move everything up significantly." "How significantly?" I asked, already feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Like, to this fall. I know it's crazy short notice, but with the Chin family resources, we can pull it off. The problem is finding a venue. Everything good is booked solid. I've called at least 20 places. I should have seen it coming. I should have recognized the setup. But I was too busy being the supportive older sister, the one who always helped, the one who always put Vanessa's needs before her own." "Have you tried the Rosewood estate?" I suggested, immediately regretting the words as they left my mouth. "I mean, they might have something. It can't hurt to ask." "Oh my God, Elena, that's brilliant. Would you mind if I just toured it? I promise I won't try to book your date or anything crazy like that. I just want to see what's available." "Of course," I said, ignoring the small voice in my head screaming warnings. "I'll even call them for you if you want. Give you a personal recommendation." "You're the best sister ever," Vanessa gushed. "Seriously, I don't know what I'd do without you." I called the Rosewood estate that afternoon and spoke with Margaret, the event coordinator who'd been helping me plan my wedding. "My sister is getting married too," I explained. "I know you're booked solid, but do you have anything available this fall? Even a Friday or Sunday?" Margaret checked her calendar. "We actually just had a cancellation for a Sunday in October. It's only 6 weeks away, which is why it opened up. The previous couple had a family emergency and had to postpone. Would your sister be interested in touring it?" I gave Vanessa the information, pleased that I could help her out. She toured the venue 3 days later with Marcus, and I didn't think much of it when she didn't immediately call me afterward. Vanessa had been busy lately, sometimes going days without responding to my texts. Then came today. I was at the venue for my final walkthrough, confirming details with Margaret about the ceremony timeline and reception layout. Everything was perfect. The deposit was paid in full, the contract was signed, and we were just 3 weeks away from the wedding of my dreams. That's when Margaret's assistant, a young woman named Sophie, came rushing into the room looking flustered. "Margaret, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's been a terrible mistake with the booking system." Margaret frowned. "What kind of mistake?" Sophie glanced at me nervously before continuing. The Chin wedding that was booked for October 6th. There was a system error. It's actually scheduled for September 28th. The same date as Ms. Castellano's wedding. The room went silent. September 28th was my date. The date I'd booked 18 months ago. The date that was locked in with a signed contract and paid deposits. That's impossible, Margaret said firmly. Elena's wedding has been confirmed for that date for over a year. There must be some confusion with the Chin booking. Sophie looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I thought so too, but when I checked the contracts, both have the same date. And both have signatures and deposits. Margaret's professional composure cracked slightly. Let me see those contracts immediately. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As Sophie rushed out, I felt reality tilting around me. This couldn't be happening. There had to be an explanation, some clerical error that would be easily fixed. Margaret returned minutes later with 2 folders, her face pale. She opened them side by side on the table, and I could see even from my seat that both contracts listed September 28th as the wedding date. But what made my blood run cold was seeing the amounts. My contract showed the standard pricing we'd agreed upon 18 months ago. The Chin contract showed a figure 3 times higher. I don't understand how this happened, Margaret said, her voice tight. We have safeguards against double booking. This should have been flagged immediately. So what happens now? I asked, though I already knew the answer from the apologetic look in Margaret's eyes. Legally, both contracts are valid, she said carefully. But obviously we can't host 2 weddings on the same date. We'll need to work with both parties to find a solution. I booked first, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. My contract is dated 18 months ago. Theirs is from last week. I understand, and you're absolutely right about the timeline. Let me make some calls and figure out what happened. I promise we'll resolve this fairly. But I could already see how this would resolve. The Chin family had money, influence, and apparently no problem paying triple the standard rate. They probably had lawyers who could tie this up in litigation for years if they wanted to. And Margaret, while sympathetic, ran a business that couldn't afford to alienate wealthy clients who might bring future events and referrals. I left the venue in a daze, driving my 12-year-old Honda Civic down the winding country roads without really seeing them. That's when Vanessa's text arrived, confirming my worst fears. She hadn't just accidentally booked the same venue. She'd deliberately stolen my wedding date, my venue, my entire vision for the day I'd been planning for years. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd experienced before. This wasn't a stranger or a random misfortune. This was my sister, the person I'd protected and supported my entire life, systematically dismantling something she knew mattered deeply to me. I pulled over at a scenic overlook and called Daniel. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm and familiar. Hey, love. How did the walkthrough go? Daniel. My voice broke on his name, and suddenly I was sobbing into the phone, the whole story tumbling out in gasping breaths. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, his response was immediate and fierce. That's unbelievable. No, actually, it's beyond unbelievable. It's cruel and calculated and absolutely unacceptable. We're going to fix this. How? I asked miserably. They have more money than we do. They can probably afford better lawyers. And I don't even want to fight my own sister in court. Then we'll find another venue, Daniel said firmly. There are other beautiful places. We'll make it work. But we both knew that wasn't realistic. Every decent venue in the Northeast was booked solid months in advance. Finding something comparable with 3 weeks' notice was virtually impossible. And even if we did find something, I'd already paid the Rosewood estate thousands of dollars in non-refundable deposits. I need to talk to her, I said. I need to understand why she would do this. I called Vanessa 3 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. I texted her, asking her to call me urgently. No response. Finally, I sent a longer message laying out exactly how hurt and betrayed I felt, how this was unacceptable, how she needed to make this right. Her response came an hour later. Elena, I'm sorry you're upset, but this is really important to Marcus's family. His grandmother might not make it to next year, and this was the only available date at a venue nice enough for the Chens. You're creative, you'll figure something else out. Still want you there as my maid of honor. 2 hearts. The casualness of her response, the breezy dismissal of my feelings, the assumption that I would just accept this and continue playing the supportive sister role, it ignited something in me I'd never felt before. A white-hot rage that burned away years of conditioning to be accommodating, understanding, selfless. I was done being the sister who always sacrificed. Done being the one who made things easier for everyone else at my own expense. Done letting Vanessa take and take and take without ever giving anything back. I just didn't know yet what I was going to do about it. My apartment in Brooklyn felt suffocating when I returned. It was a small 1-bedroom in Park Slope that I'd rented for 6 years, filled with furniture from IKEA and artwork I'd created myself. Normally I loved this space, found comfort in its familiarity. Tonight it felt like a cage. Daniel came over within an hour, bringing Thai takeout he knew I wouldn't eat and just holding me while I cried. We'll figure this out together, he kept saying. Whatever you want to do, I'm with you. But what did I want to do? Cancel the wedding entirely? Fight Vanessa for the venue? Find somewhere else to get married and pretend this hadn't devastated me? None of the options felt right. My phone kept buzzing with messages from my mother, who'd somehow already heard about the situation. Elena, darling, please call me. I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding. Vanessa would never intentionally hurt you. More delusion from a woman who'd spent our entire childhood refusing to see Vanessa's manipulative tendencies because it was easier than confronting them. I ignored the calls and instead opened my laptop, pulling up the folder where I'd saved everything related to the wedding. Contracts, receipts, correspondence with vendors, inspiration photos, timeline documents, seating charts. Months of planning, thousands of dollars, countless hours of work, all for a day that was now being stolen from me. That's when I noticed an email I'd missed earlier, buried under the flood of messages about the venue disaster. It was from someone named Victoria Ashford, with a subject line that read, regarding your venue situation at Rosewood Estate. Frowning, I opened it. Dear Ms. Castellano, you don't know me, but I know of your situation through certain channels at the Rosewood Estate. I also know your sister Vanessa through her relationship with Marcus Chen, as I handle various legal matters for the Chen family business interests. I'm writing to you confidentially because what's happening to you is unconscionable, and I believe I can help. If you're interested in discussing options that might surprise you, please call me at the number below. This offer expires in 24 hours. Regards, Victoria Ashford, Senior Partner, Ashford and Associates. I stared at the email, reading it 3 times. This had to be some kind of scam or trick. Why would a lawyer for the Chen family want to help me? And how did she even have my email address? Daniel, I said slowly. Does the name Victoria Ashford mean anything to you? He looked up from his phone, where he'd been researching alternative venues. Victoria Ashford? That's a pretty big name in New York legal circles. She handles high-stakes corporate litigation, wealthy divorces, that kind of thing. Why? I showed him the email. He read it twice, his expression growing more puzzled. This is bizarre. If she works for the Chen family, why would she want to help you? That's what I'm wondering. Could it be a trap somehow? I don't see how. You're not doing anything legally questionable. The worst she could do is try to get you to drop your claim to the venue, but you're already losing that anyway. He paused. Do you want to call her? I looked at the clock. It was already past 9 in the evening, too late for a business call. But the email had included both an office number and a cell phone, with a note saying, available anytime. Before I could second guess myself, I dialed the cell number. A woman answered on the first ring, her voice crisp and professional despite the late hour. Victoria Ashford speaking. This is Elena Castellano. I got your email about the Rosewood Estate situation. Elena, thank you for calling. I imagine you're wondering why a lawyer associated with the Chin family would reach out to you. The thought crossed my mind. The answer is simple. I despise what your sister and Marcus are doing to you, and I have the resources to help you turn this situation to your advantage. But first, I need to know if you're interested in playing a bit of hardball. My heart started racing. What kind of hardball? The kind where you don't just get your venue back, you get everything you deserve and more. But it requires you to be brave, a little reckless, and willing to trust me completely. Are you interested? I thought about Vanessa's dismissive text, about my mother's blind enabling, about years of being the good sister while Vanessa took whatever she wanted. I thought about that white-hot rage still burning in my chest. Tell me more, I said. Victoria Ashford's office was located in a glass tower in Midtown Manhattan, the kind of building where the lobby alone probably cost more than my entire apartment. I arrived at 8 in the morning as requested, wearing my most professional outfit and feeling completely out of my depth. The receptionist directed me to the 42nd floor, where I was greeted by an assistant who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Ms. Castellano, Victoria is expecting you. Can I get you coffee, tea, water? Coffee would be great, thank you. I was led into a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering stunning views of the Manhattan skyline. Victoria Ashford stood as I entered, and I was immediately struck by her presence. She was in her late 40s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into an elegant chignon. Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine but sharp. Elena, please sit. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I settled into a leather chair that probably cost more than my car. Your email said you could help me. I'm still not entirely sure how or why. Victoria poured coffee from a French press into delicate china cups. Let me start with the why. I've worked with the Chin family for 15 years, handling various business acquisitions, contract disputes, and personal matters. I've watched Marcus grow from a privileged teenager into a privileged adult with minimal character development along the way. When I learned he was engaged to your sister, I did my due diligence. Background checks, financial history, social media analysis. Standard procedure for protecting family assets. She slid a folder across the desk to me. What I discovered was a pattern. Your sister has a history of taking what she wants without regard for who gets hurt. The Rosewood Estate situation isn't an isolated incident. It's who she is. I opened the folder to find printouts of social media posts, screenshots of text conversations, and what looked like private investigator reports. There were photos of Vanessa at college parties, descriptions of friendship betrayals, accounts from former roommates about stolen belongings and stolen boyfriends. It was a comprehensive dossier of my sister's worst behavior, dating back years. How did you get all this? I asked, both disturbed and fascinated. I'm very good at my job, Victoria said simply. And I believe in knowing exactly who I'm protecting when I take on a client. Here's the thing, Elena. The Chin family matriarch, Marcus's grandmother, isn't actually dying. She's in excellent health for an 86-year-old woman. The rush to marry isn't about her declining health. It's about Vanessa pushing Marcus to lock down the relationship before he realizes what he's gotten himself into. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. But Vanessa said the grandmother was the reason they needed my venue, my date. Your sister lied. She wanted the Rosewood estate because you wanted it, because taking it from you gave her a thrill, and because proving she could have something you couldn't reinforced her sense of superiority. Marcus went along with it because he's weak-willed and desperate to please her. And the family is permitting it because they don't yet understand what she's really like. I set down the coffee, my hands shaking slightly. If you work for the Chin family, why are you telling me this? Why help me instead of them? Victoria's expression hardened. Because I have a sister too. And 20 years ago, she pulled something similar, stealing a man I cared about by lying and manipulating until she got what she wanted. I didn't have the resources then to fight back. I was young, broke, and powerless. But I vowed that if I ever saw someone else in that situation, someone with the courage to fight, I would help them. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Elena, you strike me as someone who's spent her whole life being accommodating, putting others first, making yourself smaller so other people could feel bigger. Am I right? I nodded, not trusting my voice. And your sister has taken advantage of that your entire life. The wedding venue is just the latest and most blatant example. But what if, instead of accepting this, instead of finding another venue and moving on, you did something completely unexpected? Something that would not only get you justice but would expose exactly who Vanessa is to everyone who matters? What are you proposing? My heart was pounding now. Victoria smiled, and it was the smile of a chess player about to announce checkmate. I'm proposing that you still get married on September 28th at the Rosewood estate. But not to Daniel. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. I'm sorry, what? Hear me out. I have a client, someone who needs a wife for complicated business reasons. He's willing to enter into a marriage of convenience, fully documented and compensated. The arrangement would last 1 year, after which you'd divorce amicably with a significant financial settlement. In exchange, he gets what he needs legally, and you get the resources to not only reclaim your venue but to orchestrate the most spectacular piece of poetic justice I've seen in my career. This was insane. This was absolutely insane. You want me to marry a stranger for money so I can have my venue back? That's your plan? Not a stranger. Alexander Thornton Ross. Perhaps you've heard of him? I had. Everyone had. Alexander Thornton Ross was a billionaire tech entrepreneur, the youngest person to ever take a company public before age 30. He'd been on magazine covers, featured in business profiles, and photographed at charity galas. He was also notoriously private about his personal life, rarely seen with romantic partners. Why would someone like Alexander Thornton Ross need to marry anyone for business reasons? I asked skeptically. He's one of the richest men in America. Precisely why I can't share those details without your commitment to confidentiality. But I can tell you this, it's completely legal, mutually beneficial, and time-sensitive. He needs to be married by the end of September. You want to get married on September 28th. The timing is perfect. I stood up, needing to pace. This is crazy. I'm engaged to Daniel. I love Daniel. I'm not going to abandon him to marry some billionaire I've never met just to get revenge on my sister. I'm not asking you to abandon Daniel, Victoria said calmly. I'm asking you to postpone your real wedding and enter into a temporary business arrangement that happens to involve legal marriage. Daniel would know everything, of course. Full transparency. And at the end of the year, you'd divorce Alexander, collect your settlement, which would be substantial, enough to pay for any wedding you want and then some, and marry Daniel properly. Daniel would never agree to this. Are you sure? From what I understand, he's quite angry about what your sister did. And he strikes me as someone practical enough to see the benefits. You'd be financially set. Your sister would be humiliated. And Alexander would get what he needs. Everyone wins except Vanessa. I returned to my chair, my mind reeling. What exactly would this entail? This marriage of convenience? Victoria pulled out another folder, this one much thicker. A detailed prenuptial agreement outlining every aspect of the arrangement. You'd live in Alexander's penthouse for appearances, attend necessary social functions as his wife, and maintain the facade of a genuine marriage in public. In private, you'd have separate bedrooms, separate lives, and complete autonomy. No expectation of romantic or physical relationship. After 12 months, you'd file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. The settlement would be $10 million. I choked on my coffee. $10 million? Alexander values discretion and cooperation. The amount reflects both the inconvenience to your life and the importance of maintaining the illusion. There would also be a wardrobe allowance, a monthly stipend, and coverage of all living expenses during the marriage. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to middle school art teachers from Brooklyn. I need to think about this. And I need to talk to Daniel. Of course. You have until tomorrow at noon to decide. If you're interested, I'll arrange a meeting with Alexander so you can discuss this directly. If not, I'll respect your decision and we'll part ways. Victoria stood, extending her hand. Either way, Elena, I hope you don't let your sister get away with this. You deserve better. I shook her hand and left the office in a daze, barely registering the elevator ride down or the walk to the subway. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. How did it go? Instead of texting back, I called him. Can you meet me for lunch? I need to talk to you about something absolutely insane. We met at a quiet restaurant in the West Village, one of our favorite spots. I waited until after we'd ordered to tell him about Victoria's proposal, watching his face cycle through disbelief, confusion, and something that might have been anger. Let me get this straight, he said slowly. A lawyer you've never met wants you to marry a billionaire you've never met, live with him for a year, and then divorce him for $10 million. And this is all perfectly legal and above board. According to her, yes. And it would mean getting married on our original date at our original venue, right in front of Vanessa and everyone who knows what she did. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, staring at his untouched sandwich. What do you want to do? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me thinks this is completely crazy and I should just walk away from all of it. Find another venue, have a simple wedding, and cut Vanessa out of my life forever. And the other part? The other part wants to see her face when I walk down that aisle at the venue she stole from me, marrying someone so far beyond Marcus Chen's league that it makes her entire power play look pathetic. The other part wants justice. Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. Elena, I love you. You know that. And I'm so angry about what Vanessa did that I've fantasized about confronting her myself. But I need you to be honest with me. If you do this, if you marry this Alexander person, are you doing it for justice? Or are you doing it because some part of you wants to be the sister who wins for once? His question cut to the heart of something I'd been avoiding. Was this about justice or about finally being the one who came out on top? About proving I was more than the responsible, boring older sister who always got overlooked? Maybe both, I said quietly. Is that terrible? It's human. He squeezed my hand. Here's what I think. I think Vanessa has been taking advantage of you your whole life, and this venue thing is just the most visible example. I think you deserve to stand up for yourself in a big way. And I think that if this arrangement is truly temporary and legal, and if it gets us enough money to build the life we want without financial stress, then maybe it's worth considering. I stared at him. You're saying you'd be okay with me marrying someone else for a year? I'm saying I'd be okay with you entering into a business arrangement that happens to involve marriage paperwork, as long as I knew you were coming back to me at the end. And as long as we were honest with each other throughout the whole thing. He paused. But I also need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me this isn't about punishing yourself for not being enough. Because you are enough, Elena. You're more than enough. If you do this, do it because you want to, not because you think you need to prove something. Tears pricked at my eyes. This was why I loved Daniel. Even in the middle of this insanity, he saw me clearly and cared about my emotional well-being more than his ego. I promise, I whispered. That evening, I called Victoria and told her I wanted to meet Alexander before making a final decision. She sounded pleased and unsurprised, arranging a meeting for the following evening at Alexander's penthouse. The address she gave me was in the most exclusive building in Tribeca, a converted industrial space that now housed only 6 residences, each occupying an entire floor. The lobby was minimalist and intimidating, all black marble and modern art. A doorman in a perfect suit verified my name against a list before directing me to a private elevator that opened directly into Alexander's apartment. The elevator doors slid open to reveal a sprawling open-plan space that could have been featured in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the Hudson River and the city beyond. The furniture was modern and expensive, the art on the walls original pieces by artists I recognized from museums. And standing in the center of it all, backlit by the setting sun, was Alexander Thornton Ross. He was taller than I expected, well over 6 feet, with dark hair styled in a way that suggested he didn't try too hard but somehow looked perfect anyway. He wore jeans and a black sweater, casual but obviously expensive. But it was his eyes that caught me, intelligent and assessing, studying me with the same intensity one was studying him. "Elena," he said, his voice deep and cultured. "Thank you for coming. I'm Alexander." "Hi." I stepped out of the elevator, suddenly very aware of my department store dress and scuffed ballet flats. "You have a beautiful home." "Thank you. Can I offer you something to drink? Wine, coffee, something stronger?" "Wine would be great." He moved to a built-in bar and poured 2 glasses of red wine from a bottle that probably cost more than my monthly rent. We settled into leather chairs positioned to take advantage of the view, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "Victoria told you about the arrangement I'm proposing?" he finally asked. "The basics. Marriage of convenience for 1 year, ending in divorce with a financial settlement. What she didn't explain was why you need this." Alexander took a sip of wine, considering his words carefully. "My grandfather built Thornton Technologies from nothing into one of the most successful software companies in the world. When he died 5 years ago, he left controlling interest in the company to me, but with conditions outlined in his will. One of those conditions was that I must be married before my 35th birthday or controlling interest passes to my cousin Bradford." "When's your birthday?" "October 15th. 18 days after your proposed wedding date." "And Bradford is bad news?" "Bradford is an incompetent narcissist who would destroy everything my grandfather built within 5 years. He's already tried twice to undermine company decisions and has a documented history of poor judgment in both business and personal matters. My grandfather included the marriage clause because he believed stable family life created better leadership. He couldn't have anticipated that I would prioritize building the company over finding a spouse." I studied his face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. All I saw was tired frustration. "Why not just find someone to marry you legitimately? Someone in your social circle?" "Because everyone in my social circle comes with complications. Expectations of a real relationship, family entanglements, business conflicts of interest. I need something clean and temporary with someone who has no connection to my world and therefore no ulterior motives beyond the agreed-upon compensation. Except I do have ulterior motives. I want to humiliate my sister." A slight smile crossed his face. "Victoria mentioned your situation. Honestly, I find your motive refreshingly honest. You're not pretending this is anything other than what it is, a mutually beneficial business transaction with some personal satisfaction thrown in. So you're okay with being used as a prop in my family drama? Are you okay with being used as a solution to my inheritance problem?" We both smiled slightly, acknowledging the absurdity and honesty of the situation. "Walk me through how this would actually work," I said. "The daily reality of it." Alexander set down his wine glass and leaned forward. "The marriage would be legally binding and publicly acknowledged. We'd live together in this apartment to maintain appearances. You'd attend certain social functions with me, charity galas, business dinners, that kind of thing. In return, you'd have complete freedom otherwise. Pursue your career, see your friends, live your life. The only requirement is discretion and the appearance of a genuine marriage when necessary. And sleeping arrangements? Separate bedrooms. This floor has 4. You'd have the master suite, it's larger and has better closet space. I typically work late and sleep in the guest room anyway. What about Daniel? Can I see him during this year?" Alexander's expression became more serious. "In private, yes, with discretion. In public, no. The marriage needs to appear genuine to satisfy the will's requirements. Any hint of infidelity or that the marriage is a sham could give Bradford grounds to challenge the arrangement. After we're legally married for the required time and I've secured controlling interest, you can be more open. But for the first few months at least, you'd need to be very careful." The weight of what this would actually mean started to sink in. A year of living a double life, pretending to be someone I wasn't, lying to almost everyone I knew. Could I actually do that? The wedding itself, I said. How would that work with my original plans? That's where things get interesting, Alexander said. I understand you had a wedding planned at the Rosewood estate on September 28th, which your sister has now stolen. Correct. What if I told you I could get that venue back for you? Not through legal action, but through something simpler, money and influence. The Rosewood estate is owned by a private family trust. I happen to know the family. One phone call from me expressing interest in hosting an event there on that date, accompanied by an offer to pay quadruple the standard rate plus a generous donation to their historic preservation fund, and I guarantee they'll discover a way to honor the original booking. My breath caught. You could actually do that? I could. But here's my condition. If we do this, I want the wedding to look real. Not some courthouse ceremony. I want the full production, the venue, the flowers, the guests, everything. It needs to convince my family and the board that this is legitimate. Can you handle planning a wedding that looks authentic while knowing it's temporary? Something shifted in my chest, a mixture of excitement and trepidation. I've already planned most of it. I just need to swap out some details. Change the groom's name on the invitations, that kind of thing. Alexander laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his serious face. That might be the most pragmatic approach to wedding planning I've ever heard. I'm a teacher, I said. We're good at adapting lesson plans on short notice. This isn't that different. We talked for another 2 hours, going through the prenuptial agreement in detail, discussing expectations and boundaries, and mapping out how we'd introduce our sudden relationship to our respective social circles. Alexander was thorough and thoughtful, asking about my comfort level with various scenarios and making clear that I could withdraw at any point before the wedding. I need to be honest about something, I said as the evening wound down. Part of why I'm considering this is absolutely about revenge against my sister. I want her to see me walking down the aisle at the venue she stole, marrying someone who makes her precious Marcus look ordinary by comparison. I want her to choke on her champagne. Is that petty? Extremely, Alexander said without judgment. But I can't fault you for it. She deliberately sabotaged one of the most important days of your life. You're entitled to your feelings. Don't you have any reservations about marrying someone you just met? Dozens. But I've spent 5 years building this company into something that matters, something that employs thousands of people and drives innovation in meaningful ways. I'm not going to let it fall into Bradford's incompetent hands because I couldn't secure a marriage certificate. Sometimes pragmatism trumps sentiment. I looked out at the glittering city, at the life Alexander had built, at the opportunity being offered to me. A year of living in luxury while getting paid $10 million to humiliate my sister and secure my future with Daniel. It sounded too good to be true. What's the catch? I asked. There has to be a catch. Alexander considered this. The catch is that you'll be lying to almost everyone in your life for a year. You'll have to watch what you say, who you see, how you behave in public. It's exhausting maintaining a facade, even one you chose. And there's always a risk that Bradford or someone else will dig deep enough to expose the arrangement, which could create legal complications. Plus, you'll be delaying your real life with Daniel, putting your actual future on hold for 12 months. All valid concerns. All things I'd need to seriously consider before committing. I need to talk to Daniel again, I said. Make sure he's really okay with this, not just saying what he thinks I want to hear. Of course. Take whatever time you need. But I do need an answer by Friday. If you decline, I'll need to explore other options quickly. He walked me to the elevator, shaking my hand formally at the door. As the elevator descended, I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls and barely recognized myself. I looked different somehow, sharper, more alert, like someone on the edge of a decision that would change everything. Daniel was waiting at my apartment when I got home, having let himself in with the key I'd given him months ago. He'd ordered pizza and pulled out the good wine, creating a cozy scene that felt almost painfully normal compared to the surreal conversation I'd just had. So, he asked as I kicked off my shoes. What's he like? Smart. Direct. Surprisingly normal for a billionaire. And definitely serious about this arrangement. I filled him in on the details, watching his face carefully for any signs of doubt or jealousy. $10 million, he said softly. Elena, that's life-changing money. I know. We could pay off our student loans. Buy a house. You could stop worrying about making ends meet on a teacher's salary. He paused. I could quit my job and start that nonprofit I'd been dreaming about. I hadn't thought about that. Daniel had always wanted to work in environmental education but couldn't afford to leave his well-paying corporate position. This money could free both of us to pursue passion over paycheck. But the cost is a year of our lives, I reminded him. A year where we can't be together publicly, where I'm pretending to be someone else's wife, where we're both lying to everyone we know. Daniel pulled me down beside him on the couch, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. Can I tell you something that might make me sound like a terrible person? Always. Part of me really wants to see Vanessa's face when you show up at that venue with a billionaire. Part of me wants to watch her realize she didn't win, that her manipulation backfired spectacularly. Is that wrong? I laughed despite myself. If it's wrong, we're both terrible people. Because I want that too. Then maybe we do this, he said. Maybe we take this insane opportunity and use it to build the life we actually want instead of the one we're settling for. We postpone our wedding by a year, which in the grand scheme of a lifetime together isn't that long. And we make Vanessa regret ever thinking she could steal from you. I turned to face him fully. You're sure? Because once we commit to this, there's no backing out. We'd have to see it through. I'm sure. As long as you promise me that at the end of this year, you're marrying me for real. The wedding we actually want, with no drama or revenge or business arrangements. Just us. I promise, I said, and meant it completely. The next morning, I called Victoria and told her I was in. She sounded unsurprised and pleased, immediately launching into logistics. The first order of business was reclaiming the Rosewood estate. Alexander will make the call this afternoon, she explained. By tomorrow morning, the venue will be scrambling to honor your original booking. They'll inform the Chin family that there was a terrible clerical error and the September 28th date belongs to you. Expect some fallout from your sister. The fallout came faster than expected. My phone rang at 2 in the afternoon with a call from Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her increasingly frantic messages over the next few hours. Elena, what the hell is going on? The venue called and said they made a mistake and our date isn't available. Call me back right now. This isn't funny. Mom says you're behind this somehow. How could you do this to me? The final message was from my mother, Elena Grace Castellano. I don't know what you've done, but you need to call your sister and fix this immediately. She's devastated. I didn't call anyone back. Instead, I composed a carefully worded text to my family group chat. I'm sure you've heard by now that there was a booking error at the Rosewood estate. The venue has confirmed that my original contract and deposit stand, and I'll be getting married there as planned on September 28th. I'm happy to discuss this calmly with anyone who wants to have a respectful conversation. The responses came immediately, but I muted the chat and focused on the task ahead. Victoria had sent over wedding planning resources, including contact information for vendors who could adapt my existing plans on short notice. The guest list needed to be completely overhauled, swapping Daniel's family and friends for people from Alexander's business and social circles. That evening, Alexander and I met with a wedding planner Victoria had recommended, a fierce woman named Patricia who specialized in high society events. 3 weeks is almost impossible, Patricia said, but her eyes gleamed with the challenge. Almost. Here's what we need to accomplish: new invitations, updated vendor contracts, a guest list overhaul, a story about how you two met and fell in love, and coaching for both of you on how to behave like a genuine couple. Plus we need to introduce Elena to society in a way that makes your relationship seem credible. What kind of introduction? I asked nervously. You'll attend 3 high-profile events together this week, Patricia said, consulting her tablet. Tomorrow night is a charity gala for arts education. Friday is a tech industry dinner. Saturday is a society wedding where you'll be seen by exactly the right people. By Monday, everyone who matters will know Alexander Thornton Ross is engaged to a mysterious art teacher, and speculation will be rampant. Alexander looked at me. Are you ready for this? Once we start, we're committed. I thought about Vanessa's devastated voicemails, about years of being overlooked and undervalued, about the chance to rewrite my own story on my terms. I'm ready. The charity gala was my first test, and I was terrified. Patricia had sent over a stylist who transformed my teacher wardrobe into something unrecognizable. The emerald green gown I wore cost more than 3 months of my salary, and the diamonds Alexander insisted I borrow from his family collection felt like they weighed 10 pounds around my neck. I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Alexander picked me up in a car so sleek and black it looked like something from a spy movie. His tuxedo fit perfectly, and when he offered his arm, I took it with trembling fingers. Breathe, he said quietly as we entered the venue. You belong here as much as anyone else. The ballroom was filled with Manhattan's elite, people whose names I recognized from Forbes lists and society pages. Photographers lined the entrance, and I flinched when flashes started going off in our direction. Smile naturally, Alexander murmured, his hand warm on my back. We're just two people in love attending a charity event. Except we weren't. We were two strangers playing roles, and I was convinced everyone could see right through us. But as the evening progressed, something unexpected happened. Alexander was charming and attentive, making introductions that included details about my work as an art teacher, laughing at my nervous jokes, and treating me like I actually mattered. By the end of the night, I'd almost forgotten we were pretending. The society pages the next morning featured photos of us together with captions speculating about Alexander's new mystery woman. My phone exploded with texts from friends asking if that was really me in the pictures. I responded vaguely, saying I'd explain everything soon. Vanessa's text was less friendly. Who the hell is that guy you're with in these photos? And what does this have to do with stealing back the venue? I didn't respond. Let her wonder. By the time our wedding day arrived, the story of our whirlwind romance had become Manhattan gossip gold. Alexander Thornton Ross, the most eligible bachelor in New York, marrying an elementary school art teacher he'd met at a gallery opening. The narrative Patricia crafted was simple and romantic enough to be believable. The morning of September 28th dawned clear and perfect. I woke in Alexander's guest room, my real wedding dress hanging on the closet door. It was the same dress I'd chosen months ago when I thought I'd be marrying Daniel, but somehow it felt different now. Patricia arrived early with a full team of stylists, makeup artists, and photographers. The penthouse transformed into controlled chaos as everyone prepared for the ceremony. Through it all, I kept thinking about Vanessa arriving at the venue, discovering that not only had I reclaimed what she stole, but I'd upgraded so spectacularly that her victory had turned to ash. The drive to the Rosewood estate felt surreal. Autumn had painted the Berkshires in brilliant oranges and reds, exactly as I'd imagined. The mansion looked like something from a dream, decorated with thousands of white flowers and elegant lighting. As I stepped out of the car, I saw her. Vanessa stood near the entrance with Marcus, dressed in what was clearly meant to be a guest outfit but looked expensive enough to compete with some brides. Her face when she saw me was everything I'd hoped for. Shock, confusion, and dawning realization that she'd been completely outmaneuvered. Elena, she started, moving toward me, but I walked past her without acknowledgement. I had a wedding to attend. The ceremony itself passed in a blur. Alexander waiting at the altar looking genuinely moved. Our carefully rehearsed vows that sounded surprisingly sincere. The moment he slipped the ring on my finger and I realized this was actually happening. The kiss that was supposed to be chaste but somehow felt more real than I expected. At the reception, I watched Vanessa and Marcus sitting at a table in the back, clearly uncomfortable among Alexander's wealthy friends and business associates. My mother approached me during dinner, her expression confused. Elena, I don't understand any of this. When did you even meet Alexander? What happened to Daniel? Things changed, Mom, I said simply. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns. The best moment came during the toasts. Alexander's best man told a completely fabricated but charming story about how we met. Then my cousin stood up and mentioned how happy she was that I'd found someone who truly appreciated me, unlike certain people who thought they could take whatever they wanted. Her pointed look at Vanessa was unmistakable. As the evening ended and guests began departing, Vanessa cornered me near the bridal suite. "I know something's going on here," she hissed. "This whole thing feels off. You're not actually in love with him." I smiled, channeling every bit of confidence I'd learned over the past 3 weeks. "You're right, Vanessa. I'm not in love with him the way you understand love. But I chose this. I made a decision that put me first for once in my life. How does that feel, knowing you pushed me into becoming someone you can't manipulate anymore?" Her face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, Alexander appeared at my side. "Ready to go, darling? We have an early flight tomorrow." We'd invented a honeymoon in the Maldives to maintain appearances, though in reality, we'd spend the week in the penthouse adjusting to our new living arrangement. The year that followed was stranger than I could have imagined. Living with Alexander, attending society functions, learning to navigate a world so different from my own. But it was also liberating. The money meant I could focus on teaching without financial stress. I started an after-school art program I'd always dreamed of creating. Daniel and I saw each other in secret, planning the real wedding we'd have once this was